This episode is brought to you by Mobility Public Relations, the full-service PR agency created specifically for mobility technology companies just like yours. Hello everybody, welcome to Untether.tv, where I sit with and have conversations with mobile rock stars, and I'm sitting here with Noel Chandler, who's the co-founder and CEO of Mosio. Noel?
Hello.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story. We were just talking a few minutes before we started filming this about this whole concept that text was dead in 2007. I think even it was given up for dead when the iPhone came out, and all of these other technologies on top of it, like MMS and the ability to send photos and videos and everything. But you're living proof that that text is not dead; it's alive and thriving. Why don't you just give us a little bit of a background of what Mosio is?
Mosio is a company that has developed a two-way text messaging platform. Typically, we actually started out in the questions and answers service. So we launched a sort of a Yahoo Answers for text messaging back in 2007, and then early on decided that what we wanted to actually do, rather than generate revenue from advertising, was to license our software to businesses and organizations so that they could set up their own little question and answer, post and reply platforms. So,
I mean, is that the difference between what you're doing and say standard email is that you're limited in character length and it lands on a device? I mean, challenge and response, text messaging sounds a lot like email.
Yeah, and in some cases, that is sort of how it works, except that text messaging is push. Yeah. Instead of pull, and in many ways, email is not instant. And also the software enables an 160 character incoming text, but we've built it so that they can have longer, 320 outgoing. Okay. And actually on the community, having that enabled us to see a lot of questions and answers, posted back and forth. And I haven't checked the stats recently, but I think that the average character length is about 90. So the people who think that it's actually limited, we found out, we thought it might be limiting as well, but oftentimes it's sub 100. And what Twitter's shown us all is that 140 is plenty.
It is, except for when you have lots to say, and that's usually it's kind of a blessing at that point, because I think you can get what you need to say if you craft it very well, and it eliminates the fluff and the vagaries, doesn't it? When you only have a limited amount of characters to write to.
Absolutely.
So you started the company. You're in San Francisco. You started this company in 2007. Why? I mean, what was the reason that you decided to get into this dead technology? When I say dead,
yeah, air quotes dead. Yeah, no, I get it. At the time, my co-founder and our CTO, Jay Sachdev, we had other companies and we shared an office space. And as business owners, we would go out after work and have beers. We worked on a couple of advertising technologies, really cool one, an RFID technology with billboards and LEDs for Mini Cooper. So we were working together on some advertising technology projects. We got along, and having beers after work, we realized that we were really passionate about mobile. So the original project that we started working on just for fun, we were calling JPAL, which is where you could text someone money. We quickly found out that PayPal wasn't going to go for it with bots logging in. And so we kind of turned the corner and had a whole list of, we called it the Great Eight, of all these things that you could do with text messaging. And the one that really stuck out when we started socializing it with friends was this ability to ask a question and get an answer. And the community was basically born from that. Naturally, as more and more people started joining the community, and we won the mobile category at South by Southwest in 2008, we had tons of people that were we had librarians, we had police officers, sales managers that said, hey, you know where this would be awesome? I would love to have this at work. So when it came time to start looking at generating revenue, we decided to not really try to monetize the community, but keep it alive, so to speak, as more of an R&D experiment, really, and then start licensing the technology that way. So really getting into mobile just had to do with a passion for it and finding someone else who shared that passion.
It's typically the way, isn't it? It's funny because a lot of we're seeing this now with a lot of web companies who started, post bubble bursting. So 2003, 2004, 2005. Who built what I would classify a lot of these guys like 12seconds.tv, a lot of these companies that really were at the forefront of web-based services. They built the services, they rolled them out, they got a ton of users, but then they could never figure out a way to make money off of those users. Nobody really wanted to pay, right? They just wanted to use the service and nobody really wanted to pay. And I'm starting to see, maybe not that transition yet, because mobile is still kind of that gold rush. But interesting that you said you want to leave the community as an R&D community and build out the core of the questions, but then you figured out a way to monetize this pretty early on.
Yeah, and we were it hasn't been that wasn't always an easy decision to stick to, especially watching Aardvark get acquired and having literally just a flood of emails from friends like,
you're next.
This you guys are in such a hot space, and some of them don't know that we'd already switched to that, but very much since then the entire team is unapologetic about the fact that we now have paying customers, and when they ask us for questions or they have ideas for features, they have that right. The support that they get and that we are pretty fanatical about has been paid for, and so it's worked out great. No complaints on the direction.
Well, I mean, the difference between consumer, fickle, and enterprise, and large corporate customers that use this as line of business, as a way to interact with customers, as a way to gather, to harness your own intellectual property that's somewhere hidden inside of your company. I mean, it's like night and day, right? Like if you spend all your time trying to cater to customers or to consumers, and God love them, but they have a hard time spending 99 cents on applications that run their life. The odds are that I feel for guys like Aardvark and these Q&A companies, because they rely really on the complex nature of a human being to be involved with it, right?
Right,
and
absolutely.
Sometimes you are, and sometimes you aren't, and companies have a hard time mining that information and getting the right information at the right time and interacting with the people that are their customers at the right time. So, in hindsight, I mean, boy, it's a lot less stressful going after the larger enterprises, isn't it?
In some cases, yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we talk to advisors, or when we were talking to other potential investors, they were really, really naturally excited about all the data that we're able to collect on these people, and this was early on, and we really coveted our community. They trusted us with a lot of this information. So the idea of selling that, or harvesting it seemed like a natural fit in terms of generating revenue. But at the same time, we took so much care in building it that it just didn't seem like a good way to make money. And now in this particular case, enterprise is a lot more challenging in certain ways, but a customer is a customer. Whether they're a user of your free service or they're paying for it. In many ways, I should say that Twitter has actually made everyone feel better about uptime, and they're doing a much better job. But the whole idea of a fail whale and people not being like totally upset with it is pretty interesting.
It really is, and but it comes back to that adage. I mean, if I was paying for Twitter, I would expect more, and that's what I always say. There's they're a classic case of almost text messaging without a business model, right? So they've been struggling, and it takes 160 million users to start to generate great revenue for that company, right? But it's always we're going to satisfy the users first, and then wait, we actually need to make some money to stay in business here,
right?
When your service becomes very much like a utility, like electricity in a phone line, then you pass that point where people will allow it to disappear. But it takes a ton of cash and a ton of time to get to that point. And
most definitely.
So obviously there were hills that you could have gone down around volume. So if you had enough volume going through, were you ever tempted to start throwing advertising in some of these text messages when on a question and answer, or sell sponsored links, those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, we were not only tempted, we actually accepted some advertising for the Zune, for the launch of the new Zune, and so that was great for us, just being able to see, working in that space. Incidentally, my background is in advertising and marketing. I used to sell online advertising, and we thought it was pretty interesting. When I was I used to work for IGN.com. It was called Snowball back then. And back then in 1998, 99, a lot of the internet spend was incremental budget. We've got $50,000, $100,000 to throw at the internet. And it was funny because I'm like, here we are again, now in this experimental budget. Got a call from Universal McCann saying, hey, we have some money for mobile. And so we did it, and it was great. We were able to build a little bit of a platform, and it worked out great. And our biggest concern, again, went back to the whole community. But because the community was answering questions, they were actually really supportive of there being advertising, and understood that that's how we were going about it. What we ended up doing is on that site we had 120 characters, and we saved 40 for advertising. So it was on the messages and also on the site itself. And it was a great little experiment, but I think shortly thereafter we decided to go the enterprise route.
So talk about your product, ClientServer. Like how does it, without giving away the secret sauce? How is it? How does it work? And is this something that an enterprise just basically takes and installs in their own environment, or it's a cloud service?
Yeah, it's cloud service. It's 100% web based. So basically, we take care of all the short code and text messaging elements, the relationships with the carriers and messaging fees and things like that. The platform is two-way, so that one of our products is called Text to Librarian, which we can talk about here in a little bit. That was sort of our flagship product launching towards businesses and organizations. And so what the libraries do is they license it, they get logins, and they get a keyword. So we have the New York Public Library, for example. Their keyword is Ask NYPL. So they advertise it and they say, have any questions, text Ask NYPL to 66746. And then they get this autoresponder. The user gets an autoresponder that gives them instructions, says save it on your phone. And then we remember that. So every time they text into our shortcode, we know that patron is associated with that particular library or organization. The system has it's not really secret sauce. I mean, we advertise it, but the system has an 800 plus text speak translator, so that if people are talking about things besides LOL and anything BRB, they can literally just click translate, and it translates it on the
very cool
on the screen right there for them, and that's been a pretty big hit. But autoresponders, answer templates, anything that the text librarian was really built with the input of over 1,000 librarians telling us, how about this? Or in some cases, the ideas are not necessarily doable or not scalable to where everyone else would want them. But in so many cases, building it, we got great advice on what would make it seriously easy and scalable to use. And now we're basically taking that same platform and launching it into new markets.
So, I mean, that's great because the librarians help you refine it. They're very specific. You don't know anybody who knows information like librarians, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, the best part about working in that space is that it's kind of a close knit of individuals, and I think that what we did really smart in the beginning was not to try to pretend to be something that we're not. We found a couple of librarians who are huge advocates and just really liked us personally early on, so they ended up kind of helping us spread the word without us being, oh, some librarians got together and formed this, this software. And the other great thing is that libraries don't compete. So if a librarian loves text librarian, and when they do, they tell other librarians, and that's been, we're in over 600 libraries in the United States now.
That's incredible.
It's good stuff.
As an aside, I ran a bunch of web development companies in the 90s, and we were tasked with building search engines before there was search engines available, right? And people always gave me the advice, and it was everywhere, that said, when you build a search engine, go and talk to a librarian, because there's nobody who understands finding information better than a librarian. It's funny.
Very true.
And I never thought about the non-competitive nature of it. So this is something like, so you've got 600 libraries. So you have quite a bit of information that you are gathering from those 600 libraries. And is that part of this? Is data always is rule supreme in these things, right? Is like you can take across the United States now, you have a kind of the biggest or the most, or I suppose you will have the most information about what people are querying about to these libraries, where libraries can take that and adjust strategy and spending as a result of what the information is that people are asking for. Is that, down the road, do you get into that kind of analytics?
They use the reporting to determine a lot of those things.
Yeah. But you don't see like a national average or anything like that. It's just their own library that comes up.
Yeah, we keep their information is theirs. And in fact, again, kind of going back to this, talk to advisors, talk to investors, and they see the data thing as well. But one of the reasons that they use Mosio's text librarian is because they don't see patron phone numbers, so it's completely anonymous. We have two university libraries actually that ask us to do batch deletes of association with the phone numbers and those questions. Wow. They want their library to be 100% just go there and learn, and you cannot be, it cannot come back to you whatever you were trying to learn, which is great. They're huge on privacy, and so in many ways, whatever they want to do with the data, they absolutely can. And we have Facebook and Twitter tie-in, so if they want to tweet the question and the answer, like some of them do, New York Public actually does, if they think something's interesting, then they'll tweet about it. Then they have that ability, but they certainly, we won't compile everything in a single area. And if we did, it would be a project that we got their permission on and said, hey, do you mind if we do this, or can you check this box to say if you want to add this to the knowledge bank or whatever.
It just seems to me like, all this information that we're gathering, whether it's through transactions or through use of a Mosio technology or anybody else's technology, is that we're kind of building the next generation of census, right? Like somewhere somebody's got to be able to put all this information, jam it into a supercomputer, and come out with an easier way than us having to fill out census reports every 4 years and going through that process and being so delayed on the trends. Anyways, it's just an aside, because
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a little scary too. Yeah, especially when you were talking to the whole time, I'm just thinking all the information that Google has, and now even Facebook. I mean, Google has information about what you want to search for. Facebook has information about what you're talking to your friends and family about. So.
Well, we have in Canada, our debit system has been around, and for some reason Canada adopted a debit system far faster than the U.S. did, right? So very few Canadians carry cash; they carry their bank card and use debit systems. So the debit system in Canada they could send me an email every day and tell me exactly what I'm going to spend my money on, because for 15 years they've been gathering information on me, and so I figure there's nothing that I can do that is going to be that isn't tracked or that they can't put predictive analytics around to tell me exactly what I'm going to do. so next Thursday, Rob, this is what you're going to do. And, you kind of foresee a day with all this data coming in like this, and even, the questions that people ask, it's very indicative of their headspace, right? I mean, we're talking about whether you're, an average user or consumer, or you're doing it for your work. These are predictive tools, right? And it's the behavior. So when your credit card, say you use a credit card for a phone call, and that's an out of the ordinary behavior, and they call you and say, "Is that you using your credit card?" Pretty soon they're going to be they'll be able to predict your out of usual behavior when you start on your buying purchases.
Definitely.
And the questions that you ask, right? So. Anyway, way off. Yeah,
some tangents are great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So if anybody's still awake that's watching this, we'll come back to what we were supposed to be talking about, which is Mosio. So you made that transition from Q&A, consumer focused, into enterprise, and the Text to Librarian was the first one, and it gave you the basis for what was to come, which was the enterprise stuff, right? So, but you've been working with a lot of companies already. Like, I saw on your website, you did the mobile stuff for Sears. You did, talk about some of the use cases that you've come out with that you've worked on, if you can.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing is when someone sees Text to Librarian, a lot of people get I say Text to Librarian. Text to taxi, text to, they fill in the blanks. And so Jay and I started Mosio we were both in services. I had a marketing agency that's still around, and he had a web shop. And we decided, if we're going to start another company, let's not start another services company. Let's make a product and let's build it. So Text to Librarian was that, software as a service product that we built. But as it was growing, like companies do, we're angel funded, but we've essentially treated it like a bootstrapped company. Yep. We needed to find other ways of making money. So a lot of these other companies that were finding us were saying, "Hey, can you help us with collecting customer feedback, for example," which is just a natural fit for text messaging, and then also the mobile marketing elements were there, and in direct response. So we call it MARS, Mobile Ad Response System. So we kind of built these little mini services to basically create solutions for individual clients and customers. And on some sides it was the agencies, on some sides it was brands. And the Sears thing it was a really cool project. We worked with a couple different agencies on it, and they did the online component. But it was that was kind of our first real, hey, we're in Sears stores, and there's teens texting to be part of this contest that was about crush your style. So we've had, there's been this, in between the launch of Text to Librarian and then where we're going now with this new service, we've had a lot of kind of all over the shop clients and customers. But it's been great because they oftentimes come with things like, hey, how do we track? Right. How do we track the response on this? We had some text message. We had our short code and some keywords up on some billboards, on some radio ads, and the development team was able to make a tracking mechanism to see how many people downloaded this mobile app. Mm-hmm. As you know, mobile apps are great, but accessibility and discoverability continues to be a problem.
It's the biggest challenge. Yeah.
It's just going to be ongoing, and there's so many apps, and I have so many on my iPhone, but the number that I use are few. And then, so the company that we had that was trying to get downloads, they needed to start spending on advertising, and they needed a way for people to literally download it to their phone right away. So then the development team created this tracking mechanism, which can now be used later in the product that we have. So it's been really cool. It's kind of like get paid to develop.
Yes.
A better product.
Those are the best customers, aren't they? The ones who, where you find a customer, you find a feature, and you put the two together, and out comes another feature in your product that's paid for by a customer. It's a
Absolutely.
Big lesson. So, you talked about some of these areas that you guys focus on. Not on the enterprise side, but mobile marketing. You talk about even conferences here, customer engagement, customer support. Was there any one that really stuck out, or you know, are they? I don't want to sound, you know, simple, but are they repetitive? Like, do you find that each one of these, the principles are the same, but how do you make them a little bit more unique? Is there any way to do that? Do you?
Yeah. So the two that are sticking out for us now, besides the text librarian products that are huge, are events and conferences.
Yeah. So how would you use this technology in an event or a conference?
There's actually three main ways that they get used. One is in alerts and announcements. So that's a natural marketing. That's a natural marketing play.
So that one.
The other is,
it's interesting because you know, there's a lot of companies. We'll remember where we are here, because a lot of companies who are building conference applications focusing on smartphones, right? So you know, iPhones, Blackberries, Android devices. But that's only, you know, 20% or 22 or 23% of the market. The rest of the world carries a feature phone which doesn't accept the same kind of multimedia capabilities as a smartphone. So that's where you guys slot in really well, don't you? For announcements and, you know, changes in conference schedules, right?
Absolutely. I mean, most of the phones are dumb phones.
Yes.
So we fit in there, and in many ways, you know, text messaging is still the main thing that I use on my iPhone. So so it's there, it's push, and you know, this is we obviously don't have anything against people that are creating these downloadable apps for events and conferences. It's great, but the other two uses are live Q&A. So attendees on site asking the help desk without having to run across the conference to go find it. That's worked out really, really well. And in fact, that's how we got the American Library Association as a client initially. And that really started our foray into events and conferences. And then the other thing that people really like is text message polling. Yeah. So being able to text questions, whether it's we just finished a conference for the National PTA, Parents and Teachers Association. And the keynote speaker was the president of the PTA speaking, and people were texting in questions. And then there was a moderator that would click on this button that says "Show to Screen." Yeah. And then everyone can see the screen. He or she can answer the question, and then at the end they can send everybody this big post-event. Thanks for showing up, and here's where you can check out more information about getting ready for next year. Yeah. So really, pre, during, and post. Those three different services are working out really well for people. Very
cool. So that's conferences. And then, so mobile marketing, you know, it's that gap that everybody talks about, which is you see something that you want, whether it's an advertisement, whether it's on a billboard somewhere, whether it's on you hear about it on the radio station or you see it on TV. It's, okay, so now that it's there, how do I get it on my device, or how do I find out more information? So you fill that gap with your short codes, right? Is that?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And in the case for that billboard and the radio ad, yep. They had operating system sniffers on their end. All we did was give the link to be able to track and see where, you know, what was working, where the person was, what their area code was, and deliver them that information there. Okay. So it really bridges that gap between the streets and, in some cases, I don't want to say online, but, you know, online on your phone if you want to download that app. You can do it directly from there.
It's a challenge. The great thing about all of this is that it's so if you can track this so effectively, right? So you know what works and what doesn't, and you can adjust your strategy based on that. I mean, you can't adjust the billboard, but you can really you can take more aggressive tacks if you because you're collecting all this information. You know what works and what doesn't. You know, the feedback is almost immediate, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and in fact, they were using to see whether to keep that billboard up and running or keep running those radio ads. They had different keywords for different campaigns, and so it's a great way to reach people when they're not sitting in front of a computer, or sitting in front of the TV set.
So, Field Force Mobile.
Yeah.
So this is your foray. You haven't launched it yet, have you?
No, we're pre-launch.
Yeah. So, let's talk about this, because this has what I think is probably it's using dead, again, technology
right.
to disrupt the way people are doing their work today. So why don't you give a kind of an overview of what Fieldforce Mobile is for Mosio?
Yeah, so Fieldforce Mobile is simply solves the problem of the fact that mobile workers spend a lot of time and waste a lot of time on the phone, talking on the phone, on voicemail, playing voicemail, phone tag, and enables companies to take advantage of text messaging without using the equipment that they have already. Yeah. So they don't need to buy new smartphones, they don't need to buy new hardware or download software or apps. Yeah. And so basically, you know, we like talking. I mean, talking on the phone is great, and in many cases we do it when we have conference calls and things like that. But in many ways, we feel like the telephone has become a problem in business communications, and we're able to augment telephone conversations with a lot of things that are happening when sales reps, field technicians are out and either want to give quick status updates, orders, check on things without having to call in, be on hold, leave a voicemail, so on and so forth.
Sure. I mean, it's like the promise of that email was when you could carry a conversation on your own time. So
time shifting, yeah.
Right. And so what's your plan for this? Rolling it out, any advanced customers that you guys are working with, and what's your time frame?
So right now we're currently speaking with some strategic partners to develop the last little ends. We have a customer right now that's been using it, but not under the Fieldforce, and they kind of gave us the idea of, hey, this.
I love that,
which is awesome. It's a company called US Remodelers.
Yeah.
So they do all of the home installations for US Depot across the United States. They are really textbook scenario of how this will work, in that their associates are essentially contractors. So they're not going to buy everybody a BlackBerry. They're not going to make sure that everybody has that app. And in many cases, there's however many number of them there are, some of them are still calling in when they need assistance when they're out and about. One of the coolest things about it was when they started using it. Well, there's two great things about it. Early on, their system went down. And we were the only thing up and running.
Nice.
So for I think a couple of days, or maybe it wasn't a couple of days. That's what we like to think.
It may seem like a couple of days.
Yeah, it probably seemed like quite a while. But our system was the only method of communication. So within the first week of them starting on it, a lot of people just jumped to it because it was an open channel.
Yeah.
The second really cool thing about it was being able to look and see in our general curiosity how it was being used, and look and see that what they're texting in is a completely different language. Like if you and I looked at it, we wouldn't even be able to know what they were talking about, because they're using acronyms and keywords about things. It's their own
encryption, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. I mean, and so it's really it was great. And we're sitting here going, okay, we have this text being translated, but it can't translate any of this stuff.
But that's a great business, isn't it? So there's got to be a training or a new employee onboarding process, right? So before anybody gets up to date with all the acronyms and the terminology, you could customize these libraries so that they kind of decode these acronyms for individual companies, right?
Yeah, well, if we set out to ask them what it meant, then literally they could push the translate button. We could just add it into the database.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome. Yeah, we haven't asked them too much about it, other than just, hey, what do you guys think about this? How's it going? And we have an awesome case study for it and a great testimonial. So it's pretty exciting.
So, and what do you, when you think about this, is that even if they have smartphones, it doesn't matter, because text messaging, is ubiquitous on all these on all the smartphones as well. Mm-hmm. But where do you really see this going? Text is not dead. It's now kind of more relevant than it ever has been. There's many more mediums out there, and many more uses people are finding for them, because it's a simple form. So,
right.
If you were to look a little bit into the future, where does Mosio play in a year, and what is the relevance of text messaging as this goes, as you progress?
Well, I see there's two things. One is that we actually are viewing our future as a messaging company. So not just necessarily text messaging, but as smartphones get better, being able to take a photo and post that photo, whether it was, say it's an insurance claims operator.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bigger insurance companies are outfitted with the Panasonic Tough Books and their own scenarios. But these independent contractors, they're taking pictures, but if they could just snap off something really quick, send it in. Also, in terms of mobile chat, mobile video chat, things like that. But then the evolution that we see over the next, 2 to 5 years is not only just in messaging, but is also in the mobile web in HTML5. So there's already current things that the development team's, I guess, nerding out on in many ways, geeking out on, in terms of being able to gather GPS information with a click. So a rep could essentially check in with GPS from the browser and not have to have a downloaded app to be able to do that. And if they don't have a smartphone and they don't have that component, then it doesn't really matter one way or the other. So in many ways, the strategy is get everybody on with the messaging because it's usable. I think it's the last thing I saw said 72% of American cell phone users have paid for an SMS plan. And it's funny because you read every day, I think I read a new piece of research that says what smartphone penetration is and what it will be. I think I just read that Forrester said 17%, which doesn't seem right because I've been thinking 20 for the past several years. Yeah. And then Nielsen recently announced that it'll be 50%. Yeah. So that's still those are still great numbers for us to build and grow a company and have these clients that are happy with our business, and then we can grow as we start seeing the way that they're using it.
So, I got to ask because I spent some time with a company called Zoov that do star short codes.
Okay.
They basically star pizza or something to that effect, and their startup costs were pretty high. But you guys, there's enough space here. I also interviewed a company called Cellwand. They do pound taxi, right? So here's your where you type in pound taxi and it connects you to the whatever city you are in North America. Goes to the carrier and it connects you to the closest cab company or a cab company in that city, so you don't have to look up a cab number. These are consumer facing or brand facing products. But there's enough room in this space for all of these companies, it would seem, including what you're doing with helping brands and helping companies connect closer to their customer base. But those are it's not confusion, but those are 3 different businesses, aren't they? You are in a separate business than all the other guys that I've just mentioned.
Most definitely. I mean, we the B2C, being a B2C company is great, and it's a lot. In some ways, it's a lot sexier. You can get a lot more coverage on TechCrunch, if you're busy. But for us, being able to having the luxury of being able to see a bunch of different uses by brands, by companies. Let me just say that what we decided in terms of building a company that is scalable and repeatable. Internal business communications and the way that we're going with Field Force Mobile is how we see a company using it with their employees or their contractors continuing to use it for a long time, and also for them when it comes to renewal, just saying no problem, keep it on because our people are using it.
It's dial tone for them, right? It's ultimately that's what you. Yeah. So last question here, Noel. JPAL. You've got to be thinking now, full circle, that there's an M, like a mobile commerce or a digital cash, or there's got to be a play in here in your business at some point, don't you think?
We talk about it, but it's interesting. I think I've heard this phrase, the entrepreneurial curse of knowledge.
Oh yeah.
Where you sit around and you think of all the awesome things, and I was telling someone last night, I said we're 3 years old, and we spent the first 2 years thinking of all the awesome things that you could do with Mosio, and have spent the last year focusing and honing on making it simple and scalable. So when your company's growing and you have customers and they're paying and you're making a lot of money, you can go a bunch of different ways. But I think that the focus is always going to be the most difficult part of growing any company, and making sure that you just keep doing the right thing. So to say that we haven't, we started with thinking of commerce, and so it's probably always in the back of everyone's minds. But at the same time, for us, really, we're sticking to communications.
It's yeah. I mean, so instead of collecting other people's money for them, you collect money for yourself. Ultimately, is focus on generating the revenue. Well,
exactly.
That's a very good answer. But at some point, your customers are going to come to you, obviously, as they get a little bit more knowledgeable or comfortable with the technology, and in the next coming years, I think that they're going to ask you to help them leave their wallets at home, or their payment systems at home, and especially with the field force automation guys. Ultimately, wouldn't it be great to be able to? I don't want to add to your curse of knowledge here for the entrepreneurs. But
I think there's anything you can add. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And you've thought about this, and now I'm just opening it up, and I don't want to do that, because you're right. The focus of being an entrepreneur is a challenge, because oftentimes we all have attention deficit disorder, and we love the shiny things, not what we're doing today, but the shiny things that we want to work on.
Right.
So I appreciate that. I just simplicity is what this has to be, right? So when it's as simple as it can get, and your customers are telling you what they want you to provide, and enough of them are telling you that, that's when you jump in, as long as they're willing to pay that cost. I would
definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've had several calls about, since KGB had that Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
And we get quite a few calls, because people will search for text message questions and answers, and we pop up and say, hey, I'm a mechanic, and I want to start a service where people can ask me car questions, and we'll charge them.
Yeah.
It sounds simple and it sounds easy, but we can't do that on that particular short code, and they don't want to. They typically don't want to pay and wait what it takes to get a short code approved, and especially a premium one where people are paying.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like I this concept of Q&A. To me, is much more of a brand creation, right? It's a relationship builder between myself and my customer, especially when it comes to support or anything else like that. So when I put up, a short code, that's an assumed cost, and what I want them to do is interact with me. I don't want to charge them, right? Am I off on that? Is that I want to ask a question, and it's your responsibility as a company to not charge me to get the answer out of me, but to engage with me, really. So that's really where the beauty of this is, isn't it? It's an assumed cost for the company that's doing it, but it's part of their marketing and sales budget. Wouldn't it fit into that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not talking to your customers, somebody else is. Yeah. So if you're not opening those channels so that they can talk to you when they're on the go, someone else will find that. And I don't think it's why we're not seeing. It's why we're not seeing companies that are launching these pay us 99 cents. It's like, I already paid you 99 cents. I paid you that times 100.
Exactly.
Fix my thing.
Exactly. Don't charge me for support. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's pretty amazing. Like, I mean, so we have obviously a U.S. embassy, and this is the kind of mentality. The difference between Canadians and Americans, I'll sum it up really quickly, is that you can walk into any of our embassies anywhere in the world and claim asylum and get all the information that you need. When you walk into the American embassy here in Ottawa, they send you out and give you a 1-900 number so they can charge you 99 cents a minute to get the information that you need. And I love the commercial bent of that, but boy, oh boy, if you really want me to be a part of your economy, give me that information. Make it appealing for me to actually want to go to the States. Right? And that's really, same with SMS and this whole movement is that when I send a message out, it's the expectation on Twitter now that I want instant response when I've complained about a product. Mm-hmm. You should be monitoring this. It's the same thing when it comes to this, is that you give me support because I've already paid for your product or I'm thinking about it. And, sometimes the last deciding point is that interaction. And if you fail there, I'll go somewhere else.
Absolutely. And for us, the autoresponders that we have built in at least lets you know that they received your question and they'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously Twitter's that medium doesn't so much work that way, especially not in a closed environment.
Not a conversation, right? It's not a conversation. It's basically a bullhorn where you scream it out and hope somebody responds.
Yeah, exactly. I say that with Twitter, it's like sitting in a restaurant and you yell, "This food sucks," and the damage, they can help you and make you feel better, but the damage is already done. Yeah. And instead, with text messaging, obviously, you open sort of that private channel where things can be taken care of before they get escalated to someone yelling. You know,
I guess that bullhorn. I love that. Well, listen. So, Noel, where can people find out more about information about Mosio?
Just go to Mosio.com, Mosio.com.
And you guys are on every channel: Twitter, you got Facebook, LinkedIn, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, we're on. Yeah, we're on all the places that we think we need to be.
Yes. And anything else? Last words. You know, I saw a great video that you have about 6 things to consider or 6 questions to ask. I guess about short code providers. There was a video that you did.
Yeah, it was. We mostly did it for the libraries because there's some other people that, in seeing some of the success that we've had, that are kind of jumping on to that, and I think that there's a benefit to them to cause a little bit of confusion in terms of what's the best way to go about it. And you know, I think I've got 3 gray hairs on the left side of my head and a couple on the right from the provisioning process, but if you're not doing messaging over a short code, then it's not permitted and certified by the mobile carriers. And so that was kind of we saw a bunch of hacks in the marketplace, and I think it just kept coming up. And I'd been talking to the team about putting together videos, so I was like, I'll do one. I'll do a video. Here we go. And so that was kind of the first one, and we've gotten a great response from them because in many ways, you know, a year and a half ago, we were talking to some librarians, and it's a very tech savvy group. But something we were talking to, and they'd say, "Oh, we already have text messaging. We use Meebo," and we're like, "No, that's instant messaging." And literally, just almost overnight, the entire industry is now aware of and knowledgeable about the fact that they need to be using text messaging. But there's just a lot of misinformation out there, so we do as much as we can to educate people and make them understand that all the things that we've gone through and the prices that we charge are because we're being charged and we're giving them the support that they expect. So, well,
I know. Listen, I mean, it's great to get the perspective of your perspective about this industry and where you guys are going, because text messaging, like the web, not dead. Fundamentally, the backbone of a lot of brand building, a lot of relationship building, a lot of e-commerce, a lot of commerce in general, a lot of good feelings are generated out of SMS and what you guys are doing. So listen, Noel, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing the story and letting everybody know a bit about your business.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, I've been speaking with Noel Chandler, who's the co-founder and CEO of Mosio. Go to Mosio.com, Mosio.com for more information. Listen, I really appreciate it, Noel. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
All right.